Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming back after lunch. I hope you've all enjoyed the session so far today. Please, here we go. Thank you. Okay, so please join me in welcoming back Kenny Lombardi as he continues the discussion about implementing a more holistic approach to serving the people and animals in our communities.
You guys will like this PowerPoint. It's even more dynamic. I have that slide and that slide. That's the whole PowerPoint. Okay. You guys are sick of me hearing me yet? So we're going to do this a little differently. So I want to talk about change. So I want to spend a couple minutes talking about just as human beings in the world, why change is so hard and why change is so slow to happen or not happen at all. But then I want to do real practical stuff for you guys. I'm going to pick a couple topics. I talked to a couple people before I came up here. I have a couple and I would love some feedback on, so start thinking now about something that you really wish you could change in your operations, your daily function of the work you do, but that you for some reason haven't been able to, or that you've been slow to do, or that you say have done but hasn't really happened. So something that you wish could change that would make your days, your work easier and better and more efficient, help more people, help more pets, but for some reason it hasn't happened. Start thinking about that, and I might pick on some of you, okay? So change is a really difficult thing. Some of it is ingrained in our DNA. We're habitual creatures, right? Just like dogs are super habitual, so are we. All animals, which we are one of, are habitual creatures. So we wake up in the morning, many of us have the same routine, right? We wake up, we brush our teeth, we make our coffee, have our breakfast, walk our dog, do whatever it is we do. You do it probably the same way every day, over and over and over and over, right? You can think of a lot of different things that are that way in your life. If you woke up one day and had to do that differently, all those things differently, you would probably have a panic attack, right? It would be really difficult. Some of the things that we do that have become habitual are good for us and beneficial to our well-being. They're beneficial in our job. They help us be more effective, more efficient. We put best practices in place, systems and protocols that help us do things well. Some of the things that we become habitual, though, are actually a detriment to our well-being. Like if we wake up every morning and we eat 6 donuts. That's a habit that we've created that is hard to break, but it's not helping us. It's hurting us. And much like the people here, my friends in the back, kept trying to get me to eat those donuts back there earlier, and I did not eat them. I did eat apple pie, though. So, but the point is that it comes out of habits, right? So the starting point are that we develop habits. We develop them organizationally as well, right? We have things that we've done for a long time that become, when someone asks you why, it's because that's just the way we've always done it. Right? Even though everyone kind of knows, maybe we speak it or we keep it hidden down below, that it's not really the best way for us to be doing things, but it's just the way we've always done it. And the process of changing that is going to be painful as hell, right? We're going to have 700 meetings and Zoom calls. We're going to have to type up a bunch of things. We're going to have to maybe reallocate our budget. We're going to have to maybe there's some people who won't be able to participate with the new changes, so they have to be let go. Maybe we have to hire new people. Maybe we have to, fundraise. When you decide to make any change, a lot of things come with it. I always use our bodies, our health as a mean. Most of us want to be healthy, right? But when you want to make a change to be more healthy, it's hard. Because you can't eat the donuts. You'll have to wake up 40 minutes earlier and go for a run or ride your bike or go to the gym or do whatever it is or stop drinking coffee or smoking cigarettes or whatever it is. Most of us, frankly, never do it, right? Most of us develop habits. As we get older, those habits become solidified and calcified and they stay the same for a long, long time. Maybe we make subtle changes along the way, but really profound, systemic, large-scale change rarely happens. We see it with our government. Don't get me started, but we see it with a lot of the institutions we have in this country, right? But we see it in our own personal lives, and it affects the way we do our work. Animal welfare, I will say, first of all, and I didn't do this enough earlier, should be incredibly proud and applauded for the success it's had in the last 10, 15, 20 years. There was a time where spay and neuter was not commonplace. It wasn't that long ago where 18, 19 million dogs and cats a year were being euthanized and killed in shelters across the country. Now, depending on the data, which we like to fight about, it's maybe a million-ish, right? Something like that. Whatever it is, it's significantly lower, right? So that's because of people like you in this room. We've done amazing things. We should be applauded for that. But just like the routines we have in the morning, it's time to shift. It's time to change. And I think the industry's struggling to know how to do that and get stuck. So when we get stuck, we revert back to what we know. That's what we do as individuals. That's what we do as institutions, organizations, and groups of people. We go to where we're comfortable. I'm not going to share a bunch of stories or try to make anyone or myself cry this time. But when I was about 18 or 19, I had been in trouble legally, a good amount of trouble. I was facing even more potential trouble, and I had boxed and I had studied martial arts my whole life. I got an opportunity to go to Japan. I went to Japan and lived with monks and studied kung fu and competed in martial arts for 4 years. And in Thailand, that's where I learned to meditate and be less of a jerk and be a more calmer person and to not be a raging lunatic, which is what I was prior to that, right? And so I had to take extreme measures to change. Just like now, I wake up every day kind of angry and frustrated and mad at the world because I look at the world and I'm like, Jesus, why does this world suck so much? So for me, I meditate because if over here is a calm, peaceful person and over here is a frustrated, pissed off, angry person, I start here. My natural place to be is here. I'm frustrated with humanity. I'm upset. I don't want to be that way, though. I want to be better than that. So I have to walk over to here every morning and meditate and be mindful and put in work and effort because I want to be this guy. I've been that guy, I don't like that guy, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be this guy, right? So the reason I only share that is it takes a lot of work. It takes effort. Not everyone can go move to live in Japan, but in our organizations, in our shelters, whether we're a municipal organization, whether we're animal control, whether we're a fundraising entity, whether we're a politician, a social worker, small rescue, whatever we are, I know that you all have something and certain things you want to change, things that you believe you could do better that could help you help more people, help more pets, have greater impact, work more efficiently and effectively, right? But many of you, like me, like everyone else, we get stuck, right? So how do we turn the table? I said all that to give some context. Now what do? How do we get to the place we can activate and act on those things and create actual change, right? Since I don't have a ton of time, I'm going to pick two things. I'm going to pick one that I came to the table thinking of, and then after a couple different discussions, I want to talk a little bit about the job of animal control and the relationship between animal control and sheltering. I've worked all around the country for a long, long time, and it always really bothered me, and I find it really sad and a bit frustrating that there's such tension often between animal control and the sheltering world, right? Sorry, I keep moving the microphone around. And that they don't typically work with a good symbiotic relationship as well as they could, which could help more people, help more pets, right? There's a lot of tension there. So I'm going to table that one. I might pick on a couple of you guys. But first one I want to talk about is the idea of adoptions, how we do adoptions, how we facilitate adoptions, whether it's a small independent rescue or a shelter. For a long time, you had, the norm was, a 35-page application and interviews, FBI background checks. Like, we put people through the ringer to adopt a dog, right? And I understand why we did that. Some of the stuff I talked about earlier, right? It comes from this place in my really dynamic second slide. This is the reason why we put all those things in place, because we were terrified. Oh my God, I love Rex. What if we give him to this person and they don't treat him well, right? And we lost the connection to living in a shelter sucks. The best shelter, the best rescue on earth is a shitty quality life for a dog. And a cat, it's even worse, right? It's not a good life no matter how hard you try, no matter how many stuffed animals and fluffy beds and hugs and kisses and songs you play through the speakers. It sucks because what do dogs want? Dogs want to be with us, right? They want to be with you. A dog, I believe, you will never convince me, a dog sleeping under a tree with a homeless person on a mat eating Chick-fil-A in the morning is happier than a dog in a shelter. Because what they want above all else in life is to be with people, right? So we voluntarily put up all these barriers for Rex to get out of the shelter. Between the long, lengthy applications, which is starting to get better, which I'm happy to see, between how much it costs, right? Between the more subtle and nuanced attitude we give people when they come to adopt. When someone who comes in and the first dog they see a big blocky head bully breed who's bouncing off the walls, and we look and we're like, it's a high energy dog, bully breeds of this and that. We do everything we can to discourage them why they shouldn't get that dog. Oh, that's the hallway, never mind. And we created all of that, right? So a person does the very thing we asked them to do. They woke up in the morning, they made a conscious decision to come see us in the hopes of bringing home a new family member. We should be doing backflips and ecstatic, right? I'm not saying we're not. Again, I love you guys. I'm not saying we're bad people. Everything I do and everything I talk about is with the hopes of making your lives easier and better and less burden. So you have to hold and carry the weight of the world a little bit less on your back, right? And sometimes you need a third person to step back and show you what's happening in the world, because we lose objectivity about the way we do things ourselves every day, right? And so adoptions. How do we change? Who here has no application for their adoptions? Everybody here has an application? You have none? Okay, I love you. So, I'm not saying I hate the rest of you who have one, but I love you a little bit more. So, okay, so the norm here is we have an application. Who here has free adoptions? No one. Okay. So if you remove all the stories you've told yourself of why you need applications and why it has to cost money, would you like to have a world where you could give away all your dogs for free without an application and they all did well? Would you guys like that scenario? Is there anyone who would not want that scenario? I think we all agree, right? It's possible. I see it done. Broward County Animal Services has all their pets are free, and they don't have an application anymore. I was just there a couple weeks ago. They did that before I met them, but they do it. And this is a municipal county animal services, large scale. They have the ACO contract too, kind of like my friends over there. It's possible. I know other places that do this. I know lots of places that are at least shrinking their applications to go from 3 pages to one quick page. The background checks, the calling the landlords, all those things. So I understand why we do all those things. I understand why that's become the norm. But if the goal is to get as many pets, I'm thinking more about dogs here than cats, but cats too, out of our care, out of shelters and rescues, and in homes, right? Our job is to change the way we facilitate that process. We have to make it easier, right? So, 2 things. Another human factor. 2 of the biggest obstacles to change are, one, most often is a lack of clarity. What is the change metric? What is the actual change, the thing we're trying to change, right? And in this case scenario, what is the actual change? What are we trying to change? Anyone want just yell it out if you know. What are we trying to change? Someone yell something so I don't feel like an idiot. Change. People, no, ourselves, right? We're trying to change ourselves in reality. I was trying to get to that. But we're not really trying to change the application process, because I can do that on a laptop right now. Right? We're not really trying to waive the fee, because I can do that. I could right now. Show me your website. For now, all adoptions, instead of $100, they're free. Done. I can change that in the click of a couple buttons on a laptop and on my website and on a flyer and give it out to people, right? If I don't change the mindset of the people in the building facilitating the adoption, very little is going to actually change in real life. And we have to live in real life, right? And I've seen this happen. I can't tell you the amount of places where I've done these talks, we have these great conversations, everyone's like, yes, this is a great idea. And then, like, if you do a secret shopper and you go to the adoption floor and someone comes in to get a pet, the person is treating the person exactly the same as we always have, interacting with the person the same as we always have. And it comes from, because it comes from a good place. The intentions are good. We want to protect this dog to not go, who's already probably dealt with some trauma, to go into be re-traumatized again, right? we neglect the fact that it's being traumatized every day in a loud, sterile environment without as much human contact as it would prefer to have, right? It's hard. Living in a shelter is really, really hard. You guys, we all agree with that? That shelter life isn't ideal for a dog or a cat, right? So the way to change this, there's steps to this. The first step is it always comes to leadership. You know, you've heard the phrase, attitude reflects leadership. Leadership sets the tone for everything. So whoever is in charge, it doesn't have to be the executive director or the CEO, it can just be the person in charge of adoptions. But all the people at the different levels of leadership have to really buy into a change of culture, a change of attitude. And then that has to be communicated when there's a lack of clarity and a lack of understanding of what the mission is and what this thing is, this nugget, this one thing we're trying to change, it falls apart like the telephone game. Right? If Jennifer is running my shelter and she tells me, as I'm the director of adoptions, that we're doing away with the applications, we're going to do it free, right? But then, you know, at lunch she says, well, we kind of still want to make sure people, you know, there's some people out there that are sketchy. We want to make sure they do it right. So we're taking away the application, but we still want to kind of go through all these things, right? How that's communicated to me now is a little unclear. So now I'm in charge of this, but I'm saying to myself, okay, we're doing away with the paper, but maybe I have to be even more careful now to cover my ass because we don't have the paper, and now if a dog comes back or something goes wrong, it's going to be even worse, right? So the conversations we have along the way really create the change, the theory of change, the shift, right? So it starts with leadership, then it starts with protocols. You put things in place. These are the systems that we're going to use to get dogs out of our building and into homes, right? So you have to put systems in place. And maybe you put in, you know, for adoption specifically, you have interview rooms where when people come to adopt a dog, they just go into hopefully a nice room if you have them with a couch. If you're a smaller rescue, it can be at a park bench, which is free, doesn't cost anything. It can be wherever you have the resources and the ability to do it. You do kind of an interview, and you can call it something else if you want, but that's what I've seen a lot of people call it. And you just have a conversation, and then you talk to people about, you know, why do you want a dog? Like, what kind of dog is it that you're looking for? Like, what's your life like? Blah, 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 blah. Let's go look at some dogs. And then one of the things I think, to give you real things, is I love this one line. I saw someone in Tucson, Arizona, an adoption counselor, said this to a person, and I loved it. She said, I'm committed to getting you leaving here with a dog today. Like, that put the person at so much ease that if I heard someone say that to me, I immediately would feel like they think I'm a good dog owner. They want me to get a dog, right? As opposed to feeling like I'm being grilled because, you know, like for a background check to join the CIA, right? It's scary to a lot of people. I don't know if any of you done this. I personally, and I'm a animal behaviorist as part of my resume. I've been rejected from adopting dogs more times than I can tell you. You know what I mean? I don't know why. Maybe it's because I got a bunch of tattoos and I curse too much and people don't like my beard. I don't know what the hell the problem is, but I've been rejected from adopting dogs more than a dozen times in my life. As a full-grown adult, like after I came back from Japan when I was not a jerk anymore, right? Some people probably still think I'm a jerk, but I don't think I'm a jerk. And I think about that and I say, wow, if I can't adopt a dog, imagine, I'm going to go back to those uncomfortable places. Imagine DeVell, you know, young black kid with braids and tattoos comes in and says, man, I love pit bulls. I want to adopt a pit bull. To my talk earlier with that mirror of honest self-reflection, how would your organization, your rescue, respond to that? And you can't want to see the best of yourself in these scenarios sometimes. You have to look at the potentially worst of yourself. Because we want to believe we would be good to DeVell. We want to believe we would be nice to me. But are we in reality? Are we as excited when Kenny Lamberti shows up? And this is well-dressed for me. Normally I got a cut-off shirt with like some old punk band's t-shirt on it and a backwoods baseball hat. So imagine that guy walks into your facility to adopt a dog. You know what I mean? With my wife, who's a black woman with dreadlocks, right? We walk in to adopt a pit bull because we love pit bulls, right? How do you honestly respond to that? Would it be the same if, you know, a middle-aged white couple in a Range Rover showed up in front of your facility and said the exact same thing? Would you respond the same? And the answer is no. So I'll give you the answers to the test. And that, again, doesn't make us bad people. Doesn't make us racist, doesn't make us suck, it doesn't make us, it's normal. But that's where the change happens. We have to be, first, admit this to ourselves, and then say, I'm going to change my response. I'm going to check myself, because what is my goal again? Get these dogs out of here, right? And we are sabotaging our own mission when it comes to adoption, because of all our biases and our protocols and our inability to change, right? So this is related to the talk I did earlier, but it's also practical and a less kind of emotional, nuanced thing, just about how you create change, right? They say if you do certain thing enough times, eventually it becomes a habit, becomes normal, right? I go back to health and fitness. You know, if you wake up and go for a 40-minute walk every day for 3 weeks, that becomes your new normal, right? And now that slowly becomes calcified and solidified as part of your way of being, and then it's hard to change that, right? So you went from waking up and eating donuts to waking up and walking 40 minutes, but you stuck with it a while, you mandated it, maybe you wrote it down, put it on the refrigerator, put it on your phone to have reminders, you put systems and protocols in place to help facilitate the change, and then that solidifies, calcifies, and becomes your norm, your normal way of being. Now you're a person that walks every morning, right? You feel better. You know, you're less cranky. You know, you lose some weight. You're happier. Your lungs are better. Blah, blah, blah. All these benefits happen to it. We have to first start with the desire and the willingness to change, changing the mindset and the attitude, how we feel about this thing that we want to change, in this case, how we adopt dogs. And then we have to put systems and protocols in place that hold us to one of the most important words in change is accountability. There has to be accountability. Again, leadership holds so much on this, that quote of attitude reflects leadership. If leadership doesn't really believe it and they're just doing it because they got a grant, because they want to say they're doing open adoptions, whatever, it's not going to change. It's going to trickle down all the way down to the volunteer who cleans the kennels, right? So it starts with leadership, then comes with systems in place. There's 3 steps to really effective change, and there's a final step. It's leadership, belief, buying in. There has to be buy-in and belief. Then there has to be systems put in place to facilitate that change. Then there has to be accountability. We have to be willing to look at it every month and say, okay, we've put in these new systems in place. Have we adopted more dogs? No? Let's find where the crack in the system is. But you have to have that meeting. If you don't have that meeting, you can never investigate where the crack is, right? You can never look at it. Just like my wife is she's a really tremendous athlete. And, you know, we have systems in my house where if I skip the gym, she has to do certain things that I hate. Like I have to vacuum and do all this other crap around the house that I hate if I miss the gym. You could call it punishment, but it's really a way to put systems and accountability in place. So now it's normal. Now I never miss going to exercise because I hate vacuuming. And there's things she hates doing. She doesn't like walking the dog, which I don't understand why. It's the best part of the day. But whatever that's worth. So then she has to do things like, you know, the landscaping or whatever it is. So, but the point is we put systems in place. And that's true in my demented marriage, but it's also true in your organization. So wherever your organization is, whatever you're doing, like if this is something you want to do, and I picked adoption, but you can pick something else that you want to change. If there's something that you think is important, that's an obstacle to you being effective, efficient, and doing your job well, and being a better service, and having greater impact, and there's things you want to change, you have to first commit to really believing that you want to change them, stop making excuses, then put systems in place, hold each other and the people in your line of reporting accountable. And then the last piece of this is the most important piece. You have to then celebrate and promote the change and the victory as something that you accomplished. It's a goal. You set a goal in mind. We want to adopt more dogs. We believe in our hearts, no matter how hard it's going to be, that if we remove the fees and remove the lengthy applications, we'll adopt more dogs. And that's our dream, right, is to adopt more dogs. These are the steps we took to do it. And now this month we adopted more dogs. Even if it's one more friggin' dog, you won, you succeeded, you celebrated. That's why they give gold medals at the Olympics. That's why they give trophies in sports. That's why you get a championship ring and a championship belt, because there's something to signify success and victory, right? We don't do that nearly enough. You guys don't do that nearly enough. And because of a lot of stuff I've talked about already today, as soon as you celebrate that one dog going out the door, there's 3 more skinny, broken, sick dogs coming in behind them, and you never get to celebrate. Right? So this is a way to celebrate a systemic change and shift in your organization, not just the one dog or the one cat that you saved, which obviously that deserves celebration as well, but the bigger systemic changes are what change the culture of your organization, change the way you serve your community and your people. And you can see it. You can think now, like there's so many things societally that are normal now that didn't exist just a couple of years ago, right? Some of those things are negative things, but there's lots of good things too, right? But we're focused on all the things that are wrong, right? We're focused on what's bad about people. We're focused on what's bad about America, what's bad about everything, right? And a lot of it's true, but there's good things that happen too. And so don't disconnect your work and your shelter from the world, because a lot of the way we're acting in the world and the way we're acting with each other it's really, it mirrors what's happening in animal welfare. You know what I mean? So I'll pause for a second because then I want to talk about the animal control piece. But does that make sense on change theory? And you can read about change theory, but it's not good enough to just wish it to be. You can't just wish things were different and hope things were different. Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. Yep. So, okay. So for a long, long, long time, animal welfare, smaller rescues, relied on revenue for the fees they charge for adoptions, right? A lot of the big shelters are now shifting away from that because you have to find other forms of revenue, right? And so again, I don't mean to make any of this sound easy. Change is hard. So I'm not making this sound easy. It's not just snap, we don't charge money. But for example, I can give you some examples that I've seen work as opposed to just fantasies, right? I know a small rescue in my community in New Orleans, right? 3 paid employees, a bunch of volunteers, small rescue. They were charging adoption fees. I volunteer there. I help them all the time. They're my friends. They're literally 3 blocks from my house. I wanted to help them get to where they didn't have to charge adoption fees, right? So now what they do is they offer more grooming services through someone where they make revenue. They do dog training classes that the public pays for, right? So they found other ways to create a revenue stream. They also doubled down on some of their fundraisers. You know, we're in New Orleans, so they do crawfish boils. That's something specific to New Orleans. They charge money. They do music. They do little events around the community. They charge people. They brought someone in, a volunteer, to help them to promote the use of their social media more effectively to raise money. So they invested more time and energy in creative fundraising, found 2 different services, grooming and dog training, that they could charge for, and then now they bring in the revenue that way so they don't have to charge for the adoptions. That worked for them. And now what happens is they adopt more dogs. I can tell you statistically that this was a year ago. I only know I just met with them, so it's good timing that you ask. In 2022, they adopted like 470 dogs. In 2023, just year to date, they're already over 600 for free. So they adopted a lot more dogs without free, but their budget, they have more money in their account now because they found other ways to create revenue. Again, I'm not saying it's easy, but it is doable if you can change. It's hard. If you're committed to believing we can't survive unless we charge money for animals, right? Remember how I said the first step to change is belief? You have to believe. If you really believe the only way my rescue can survive is to charge $400 per dog, $200 for cat, or whatever it might be, and that's what you're committed to, that belief, then you're right. You can't do it, right? I'm not saying it to be harsh. They can, and I think Jennifer would be a good person to talk to because Haas is talking about this a lot. There is a way to be able to do fee-free adoptions and not go out of business and still do okay, but you have to change. You'll have to change some of your general operating practices. You have to change your budgeting, change your fundraising. I agree. It is extremely tough. That's why I started this by saying it's extremely hard. But I can tell you Broward County, the one I mentioned before, this is the county, this is municipal, this is the city. All their adoptions are free. And they have to go through the red tape of government policies or anything. There's nothing. And they had to change from charging a fee to go free. And you can imagine the meetings they had to have with their county reps and stuff like that. So I've seen it be done and be successful many times. It is hard, and it doesn't happen overnight. It might be a process. How do you get what? Well, you're always going to have to pay the veterinarian, but well, so there's multiple things. If whatever you have a budget of something now, right? Okay, so whatever your budget currently is, right? You have to start by looking at your budget and being willing to move some things around. And initially, the first step might be maybe there's certain things you're doing currently that you can't do anymore because you're going to move some things around, right? And then you're going to have to talk with the veterinarians have to get paid. They should always get paid, right? But you're going to have to find different ways to allocate and structure your funding that you currently have, and find creative ways to bring in different streams of funding, and find other ways to create revenue. That's, at the end of the day, the specifics of those things are different for everyone. But at the end of the day, if you're relying on that revenue now, the only way to not have to rely on that revenue from adoption is to find new ways of revenue and different ways to allocate your funding. I don't know your specifics, so I can't tell you specific. I'm happy to talk to you after. I'm happy to. And someone else had their hand up back there.
The only problem I have with free adoptions is impulsive adoptions, meaning that people see that animal shelters are giving away free dogs, and they go, oh, let's go get a puppy. And then they're returned, or they're left on the street, they're picked up, whatever. But, yeah, rehome. You know, they just go out on a whim. They have no way, no means of taking care of the dog. Because these animal shelters are so full and indebted with animals at this point, they do not do a good adoption process. They check to see if you got an address, a driver's license, sometimes, and then you leave with the dog. So I get what you're saying, but it's just these rescues are going out of business because people do not want to adopt, because when you go to an animal shelter and get a dog, and in a lot of counties in Kentucky, they're not spayed or neutered.
So I again am not. Everything you're saying, I understand, and there's truth behind it all. What I started this was saying is, do we want to change that? So if we want to change that, which I think we had some level of unanimous wish that we could change this, right? We have two choices. We can continue to live in the reality that you just described and be committed that it can't be done, or we can try to explore and look at ways to change it. And the only way to change it is, the first step is, if your organization is surviving based only on the revenue it gets from pet adoptions, then you can't change it. So you have to change the way your organization survives. If your organization cannot survive without taking money for that it costs for the adoptions of a pet, then you can't actually change it. You can change it if you can find ways to keep your organization effective and impactful and surviving and thriving without relying on the fees from adoptions. Those two things can't live in the same universe, right? And I understand that. And that's why I don't know the specifics of either of your organizations. It sounds like right now you couldn't do that because you would have no other form of revenue, which is why I said the solution, I have to be solution-based versus committed to things being the way they are if I want to change, right? This presentation is about change. So if we accept that the overriding purpose of this is that we have a desire to change, I have to be focused on solutions to achieve the goal to change, not on I understand what the problems are. This is why we are the way we are now, right? I understand that things are difficult because I can't survive without taking money for adoptions. We've identified the problem. Now we have to identify what can we do to solve that problem so I can change to not charge for adoptions. Now, if you philosophically just don't believe in free adoptions because you think, the things I've heard over years about people don't value pets unless they pay for it, I don't think that's true at all. And there's no data, no research to show that that's true. There's actually very little data or research other than anecdotal small stories to show that people return pets more frequently when they're free. In fact, the majority of the data and research I've been privy to shows the opposite of that, that whether a person pays for a pet or gets it for free has zero impact at all on whether or not they keep the pet. And in fact, in a lot of research and data and anecdotal experience of my own shows that when someone gets a pet for free and has a great experience at the shelter, they're more likely to come back and be an ally and a volunteer and recommend you to other people. So now they're doing marketing for you because they come in and say, hey, I went to this facility, the people were so nice, they were wonderful to me, they gave me a bag of dog food, they told me I could, if they need help, to just call them, and I got a puppy for free, it was great, blah, blah, blah. They're more likely to recommend you and promote you to other people. So there's a lot of tertiary benefits that we won't even think about yet that come also from free. Like, yeah, no adoption is going to be perfect. You could charge people $1,000 and literally have the CIA do a background check and fingerprint them. That doesn't guarantee that the dog's not going to be returned. Thank you. I only have a few minutes. My point is that no matter how exhaustive the process is, you still can't guarantee that the pet's outcome is going to be perfect. And much of the research and the data shows that the cost of it doesn't impact the success or the potential return of a pet, So that I think that the fear of what might happen. I forget the woman's name. I don't even see her with the sling. Is she still here? So she had a great line that I'm going to repeat quickly. She said all the fear she had about what would happen if she took pets in her shelter, none of them came true. Do you guys remember? Were you here when she said that? That's true about so many things in life. I'm going to tell you, this is a little thing that'll make you laugh. Then I do want to spend a couple minutes about animal control so I can talk to them. I was single till I was almost 50 years old. I had never even lived with a woman. I barely even had a healthy relationship with anyone. I was me, my dogs, and that was it. I was completely against real relationships, I guess. Mostly because I was sucked at them and it terrified me. I had complete terror of sharing my life with another human being. Terrified. Then I met my now wife, got married, and although it's still terrifying, none of the things I was terrified about then actually came true. None of them came true. There was the same thing when I have 4 different black belts in martial arts. When I went over to Japan, not speaking the language, as a big, ugly, tattooed American guy, I was terrified it was going to happen to me. None of it came true. When I got pit bulls, I forget my friend's name back there, when I was last time here, when I came in, you had a certain belief about pit bulls in 2018, and you said it's changed now, right? Think about, we all probably love pit bulls because we see them so much. Think of the public's narrative on pit bulls and how much that's changed because of us. We've made people love pit bulls now, So it can change, And that's, I'm not discounting the obstacles and the difficulty and the challenge it will take to do it. But if it's what we agree we would love for things to be, we have to be solution focused and think of creative ways to make it happen versus just continually telling ourselves, I can't do it because of X, Y, and Z. Because then it's true. And it's not good or bad, but it's true. What you keep saying is, I can't do this, make this change because of X, Y, and Z, if that's what we keep saying, then you're right. You end up right. But then the thing you said you wanted in the beginning, that would be a dream to come true, never happens. And at the end of the day, the only agent of change, if you run your own organization, it has to be you, right? So, and we can talk more because I have some specific stuff. But I want to talk quickly about animal control because I only have a few more minutes. 1 minute maybe. So I was talking to, I don't know which organization you guys are, but the table over there against the wall, which are animal control. There's a couple other animal control folks back there. And I think they had said, I asked them what was the one thing they would help, and they said that they wish their ACOs, I'm paraphrase, had the same kind of authority in the community as a traditional law enforcement officer, as a traditional cop, right? And that they don't have the same power and authority. You're not kind of empowered the same way as real law, quote unquote real law. I just did it, right? I just minimized you. And I think over here we were talking about that there's oftentimes, not them personally, but that there's between animal control and the shelter folks that they kind of feel like they're working against each other a lot of times, right? Which, when you stop and pause and think about that for a second, that's friggin' cuckoo, right? That the people's job is animal control, which is really, no matter how you word it, protecting animals from cruelty and neglect, or whatever it is, their job is on the side of helping animals, no matter how you chop it up. The shelter people's job is on the side of helping animals. And the fact that those two entities can't get along very well, and this is the norm, I would say pervasive norm nationally, is that animal control, whether the contract is held by the shelter or not, municipal or not, tend to have tensions with the local rescues and the shelters, which is bonkers to me, right? That'd be like doctors and dentists going to war with each other. It just, is that a good analogy? I think that's a good analogy. But the point is that is bonkers, right? And I think we'd all agree, would we like to see that change? As an ACO back there, wouldn't you like to have great relationships with shelter and rescue people? Yeah. Would you guys like to have great relationships with shelter and rescue people? Right. Would the shelter rescue people like to have great partnerships with animal control officers? So again, we're back to that place. What's the dream? What's the wish is that we have healthy, productive, impactful partnerships between the folks tasked with animal control, which I said when I first got in this morning is a hard-ass job, and I wouldn't want to do it, and the folks tasked with taking care of unhomed animals and shelters and rescues, right? We all agree I think we all agree that that's not that good now, and that we'd like to change that, right? So we'd have to go through the process again. We have to believe honestly that we want it to change. And we gloss over this part, just like with the adoption. Do we really want to change? Do we really want to do free adoption with no application? Or are we just saying because it sounds good or because we're in a room with a conference with some loudmouth talking about it, right? So that's the first step. Do we really want to be best friends with the shelter people as an ACO? Do we really want to be best friends with the ACOs as a shelter? Do we really want that? We believe in that. That's the first step. Then, what systems do we put in place to make that dream that we all say we want to happen come true? I can give you a few right now. These are things I've seen happen in real cities with real human beings who do both of those jobs, where ACOs did outreach with shelter staff to deliver things to people. That's becoming a little more common now, dog houses, pet food, and stuff like that, right? Because there's multiple things that happen. The community often's only touch point back to our world of animal welfare are ACOs. A lot of people will say like the tip of the spear, kind of, right? And it's oftentimes because it's their job, not because they're bad people, it's punitive. Writing citations, maybe potentially removing pets from the homes. It's their job is enforcement. It's in their title of who they are. Right? So often, if that's your only experience and you live in a community that the people at the shelter just come and write me citations or take my dog away from me or threaten me or do whatever it is that they do that's punitive, that fractures your relationship as the shelter now too, because the general public doesn't know the difference. General public, you're just the animal people. They don't know that you work at the shelter and you're the ACO and where the contract is and who's what. You're just the animal. You're the animal people. And now I have to be scared of the animal people. The animal people aren't here to help me. I have to hide my dog from the animal. You guys probably have to see all kinds of dogs getting hidden in backyards and stuff under porches. So imagine if, again, we believe we want to make this change. The systems we put in place is, what's your name with the beard? Eli, you're an ACO, right? So Eli, now this is not true, but the folks over here are your shelter, your local shelter community, right? Every Thursday, Eli, from 11 to 1, goes out and does outreach out of uniform, right, with someone from the shelter and delivers medication and food and just makes friends with people. If Eli sees something that needs his work as an ACO, he doesn't deal with it at that point. He makes a note of it, comes back later as an ACO because that's his job as an ACO. Right? And I would never want you to not do your job when it comes to real neglect and cruelty. But a couple of things happen. This is the system we're going to put in place. If you do that, you start to see something good for a change, right? As opposed to always having to see the shit end of the deal. You also get to be the good guy. You get to be Santa Claus, not the Grinch, right? Which is good for the public, good for you. And it starts to foster build a better relationship between both of you because you can see each other's point of view. You also now have to 2 hours a week, which is not a lot to ask, 2 hours a week, go for a ride along with Eli when he's in uniform. When people cuss him out and yell at him and hide when they see him coming and see what he goes through. and you have to help him with his job, and you start to build a relationship, right? So we believe we want it to change. We put systems, real life things in place to start to initiate that change, and then when we have accountability, that we don't get to write, you don't get to say, well, I don't have time to do that this week because I have other things to do. Because now you've deprioritized that change. The thing you said was a dream that you want to change. If it's an option and you can just skip it that week, now you've deprioritized it. It's actually not that important to you, right? You're saying it's important, but it's not because you put it aside because other things took precedent for both of you, right? So that's the accountability. Then the last piece is when Eli has a great experience, put it in the newsletter. Officer Eli, like out of uniform, out with shelter worker, Melissa delivered 6 dog houses and they helped 5 people keep their pets. They didn't have to come into the shelter this week. Put it in the newsletter, get a reporter to come out and tell the story. Go talk to everyone else at the conference. When you come here next week and you raise your hand, not next week, next year in the conference and raise your hand, tell that story and help other people do that thing. So I know I went over my time, but I just want to wrap up. I used adoption and ACOs as examples, but there's a million other things that can apply to the same thing. If you want to change something, you have to be willing to commit to doing it, or it won't change. And you can use this as your personal life, your relationships, whatever it is. But in our animal world, we have to start. We've done such a good job. It's really a compliment to you all. You guys. And this industry has kicked so much ass for the last 20 years that now the landscape's different. Now the way we have to serve pets and people is different. But we're still doing things mostly the same as we did them before, right? It's not the same anymore. The world's not the same for pets and people. It's better because of y'all, right? So now we have to change. And those are the kind of steps it takes to change any behavior. And it can be done. It can be a lot harder in some places than other. I've seen it happen. I've seen transformational systemic change in organizations that start this way with leadership, clarity, accountability, and celebration. If you do those things, you can change the way you function as an organization. And if anyone really wants to do more of this, I don't think my information's anywhere. I don't even have business cards, but I do have a consulting practice that I work with folks. So grab me. I'm happy to give my cell phone, my email. I'll even give you my wife's phone number if you have public health questions. So anyways, that's my time. I went overboard. I'm so sorry, Diane. But I wanted to get that point in there. So. Sure, I like it here.
Thank you, Kenny, for such a thought-provoking discussion and inspiring us as we go into our breakouts where we are supposed to be coming up with solutions. So as a reminder, as you're going out to your breakouts, breakout number 1, interpersonal violence with Joy is going to be out here to your right in the Derby room. Breakout 2, diverse partnerships with Vicky is across the expo hall in the Lexington room. And then breakout 3 about implementing support services with Jennifer is in the main award room directly to our left. To the left. Sorry, y'all. And yeah, that's all I got for you, so disperse.